Now, pupil, sympathetic nervous system. Now, thing is that with the sympathetic nervous system, you have dilation. And dilation, this actually is a term that comes up more and more often, especially in PHYL 142. So dilation is the opposite of constriction and contraction. So when something contracts, it kind of does this, right? But dilation is when something grows bigger in diameter. So I like to think of it, dilation means bigger in diameter. So what happens when your pupils, when they dilate, that means your pupils gonna get bigger, like this woman's eyes right here. So why does it get bigger during sympathetic? Well, thing is that, or another way to think of it, when you're in a dark, scary place, do you want to see more light in a dark place, or do you want to see less light? Well, you want to see more light, right? So this is why your pupils dilate. It's trying to open up your pupil and the hole that allows light in. You want to increase the diameter so you're allowing more light in. So this is why you have dilation with sympathetic activity. But so why not have your eyes dilated all the time? Well, if you ever gone to the optometrist, or if you wear glasses or contact lenses, well, have you ever had your eyes dilated and go outside? If you're not wearing shades, you're going to be blinded by the light, right? So the other thing is that another negative side effect of having overly dilated pupils is that you get tunnel vision. So your focus actually becomes less. So you see that this peripheral vision is starting to get clouded because why? You're allowing more light in, but your focus isn't as great. And so during a test, do you want to be sympathetic or parasympathetic? Well, if you get too sympathetic and your pupils start to dilate and you get tunnel vision, is it easier to read a test when it's like this or when you're relaxed? So when you're parasympathetic, what you have is a constriction. Now you're letting in less light. And with this, and when we cover vision later on, I think 2 lectures from now, then now we're going to cover the parasympathetic nervous system. So when you constrict, that actually allows you to focus light better on your retina that receives the light from your environment. So the thing is that now you have adaptation for close vision. So if you're parasympathetic, you start to restore your peripheral vision instead of having the tunnel vision. Or if you've ever done like a sport or tried to run, I mean, you can see right in front of you, and that's your destination, right? You're not really concerned with your periphery during sympathetic. But parasympathetic, now that you're relaxed, now you're not in an intense situation, now you have more focus, now you have more restoration of your field of vision. So again, you don't want to get too sympathetic during your test because why? Well, you don't want tunnel vision. Now, lacrimal glands, so these are your tear glands, and we do cover this during the vision part of our semester. So the parasympathetic, so sympathetic nervous system, there is conflicting information. Some sources say that, I forgot if Martini says there's no innervation, but I think this link here, I think they did find innervation of the sympathetic nervous system, and some implying that there is some sort of like dry eyes with sympathetic nervous system. But if again it's conflicting, don't worry too much about it. So again, Martini says there's no innervation, but this article I linked to says there is. Or the other thing is that not only are there articles that say that there are sympathetic fibers, but that they stop at ganglion, or they say it directly goes to the gland. Again, 3 different sources saying 3 different things. Don't worry about it for this class. So again, for this class, don't worry. Now parasympathetic, this is what you should know. So again, sympathetic lacrimal glands, don't worry. Parasympathetic, you should know this. So parasympathetic nervous system controls tear productions in your tear glands, and this is widely accepted. So this lubricates the eye, and so there's when we cover neurotransmitters and the synapses of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system next lecture. So there are these class of drugs that actually inhibit the activity of acetylcholine. So the interesting thing is that if you actually inhibit this parasympathetic nervous system, it can inhibit tear production, causing dry eyes. Now salivary glands, okay. Let's ask the chat, and I might be wrapping up pretty soon, but okay. So what would you list as your top fear? Actually, this might be totally different in COVID. Well, actually, you don't have to confess your fears in public. Let me set up something real quick. Okay, so what are you fear of? Well, this probably has changed, especially in the last year. And so one of the major fears they had, like I think this survey was maybe 5 years ago. So public speaking used to be one of the major fears of people. But so what happens if you're trying to do a speech in public, what typically happens to your mouth? Does it get moister more is moisture a word? Yeah. Does it get more moist or does it tend to dry up? Well, typically if it's your first time doing a public speaking gig, well, typically happens is you get that dry mouth, right? So with the sympathetic nervous system, what it does is it decreases saliva. So it's going to get less liquid, it's going to get stickier in your mouth. So the medical term is xerostomia, but this is why if you're getting really nervous about a public speech or a group presentation, this is why your mouth feels that way. That's why your mouth gets drier and stickier. It's due to that decreased salivation caused by your sympathetic nervous system. Now, luckily, your salivary glands are dually innervated. So the parasympathetic, this is your increased salivation. So when you're trying to eat something or when you're trying to relax in bed, I mean, maybe you get so relaxed you start drooling like this guy here. So this is why when you're doing public speaking, you not only have a dry mouth, maybe your saliva also gets stickier due to the decreased salivation. But when you have parasympathetic, you have less mucus and more watery saliva. Instead of worrying about the public speaking, now you're more concerned with digesting what you just had. Okay, so parasympathetic cranial nerves, well, we have our 3, 7, and 9. And actually, let's look more at this. So where do you notice that? So here we have cranial nerve 3. Again, your oculomotor controlling most of the muscles of your eye. Your cranial nerve 7. So it's both motor and sensory. And what we have here is it going to some of your tear glands over here. And I think that's supposed to be one of your salivary glands. Yeah. And then you have your 9 supplying your glossopharyngeal supplying another salivary gland. But what is this nerve right here? This big nerve, just one nerve, is innervating your heart, your lungs, your liver and gallbladder, your stomach, and then your spleen, your pancreas, and your large and small intestines. So and your rectum as well. Yeah, so that nerve, that is your vagus cranial nerve number 10, right? So Viva Las Vegas, that Vegas strip has all those organs right there. So this is a cool thing. Like here we have ganglia leading from that cranial nerves 3, 7, and 9. But all of these ganglia innervated by the vagus nerve, notice that long vagus nerve, all the ganglia are actually right next to or within the organ itself. And these are these are the head and neck ganglia, but outside of the head and neck, all of these are what we call intramural ganglia. So mural, or like all the murals you see popping up downtown, like in Kakako, a mural is a painting on a wall, right? So this is like saying within the walls of an organ, you have these ganglia. That's what it's saying here with the intramural ganglia. So that's another special thing you see in the sympathetic nervous system, and even more specifically on the ganglia innervated by the vagus nerve. So again, this is why the vagus is so important, but also very long. It's supplying innervation to all of these organs right here.